Good evening from New York. The South Carolina Supreme Court this week ordering a health insurance company to pay $10 million in punitive damages for its reprehensible decision to rescind the health insurance policy of a young man. Why did the company, Fortis Healthcare, now Assurant, revoke the policy of a teenage college student? He tested positive for HIV a year after he had taken out the policy. The company claimed he had misrepresented his HIV-positive status for a virus he did not know he even had. Our fifth story on the countdown. If there had been any doubt that significant health care reform were needed, those doubts have been shouted down, and not just by the justices of that South Carolina highest court. President Obama today taking his campaign for health care reform to the University of Maryland, where he told thousands of cheering college students that Congress must resist scare tactics and false accusations. Their loudest cheers coming when the president spoke about the public option.
Now, I've also said that one of the options in the insurance exchange should be a public insurance option. Let me be clear. It would only be an option. No one would be forced to choose it. No one with insurance would be affected by it, but what it would do is provide more choice and more competition and put pressure on private insurers to make their policies affordable and treat their customers better.
The crowd at College Park also booed most loudly when he spoke about those determined to keep things exactly as they are, broken.
There are still those in Washington who are resistant to change, who are more willing to defend the status quo than address the real concerns of the American people. What can I tell you? They're still out there.
More booing, if not as boisterous, when the president brought up Senator Max Baucus and his health care reform bill that does not reform any health care.
The good news is we are now closer to reform than we've ever been. After debating this issue for the better part of a year, there's now agreement in Congress on about 80% of what needs to be done. 4 out of 5 committees in Congress have completed their work. Yesterday, the Finance Committee, under the leadership of Max Baucus, put out its own bill. Each bill has its strengths, and there are a lot of similarities between them.
Governor Howard Dean all but booing in reaction to the Baucus bill, calling it, quote, the worst piece of health care legislation I've seen in 30 years. In fact, it's a $60 billion giveaway to the health insurance industry every year. It was written by health care lobbyists, so that's not a surprise. It's an outrage. I wouldn't vote for it at all under any circumstances. More problematic, Democrats saying nice things about the Baucus bill. Senators McCaskill and Ben Nelson joining the independent Joe Lieberman and Republican Olympia Snowe in commending him on it. Quote, while we each have outstanding concerns we wish to see addressed, Senator Baucus has taken an important and critical step forward with this legislation. In the insurance industry, he has. Senator Snowe saying of the president on CNBC today that she believes he's flexible on the public option. More apparent flexibility on strategy. Word from Politico that First Lady Michelle Obama will begin a packed autumn of events that aides say will include a dedicated focus, albeit a soft focus, on health care and reform. And after that dose of political speak, I'm joined now by our own Lawrence O'Donnell, contributor to the Huffington Post, former chief of staff of the Senate Finance Committee. Good evening, Lawrence.
Good to be here, Keith.
The Baucus bill pushing this idea of state exchanges as co-ops. This brought this remark from the Congressional Budget Office. The proposed co-ops had very little effect on the estimates of total enrollment in the exchanges or federal costs. So if they're not going to lower costs or drive enrollment up, why co-ops?
Well, they're designed to have very little effect, so it turns out they work perfectly well.
They work well, yes.
It's also, unfortunately for the chairman, it has driven one Democratic member of the committee to already announce he's going to vote against it on that basis, on the basis of there not being a public option. Jay Rockefeller's already gone. And so this is a pretty soft way in terms of legislating to start a markup. Going in there knowing you've lost one of your own Democrats already is pretty tough.
So with that vote counted against it, is it possible this bill never gets out of that committee?
Bills always make it out of the Finance Committee. This is the only time you're going to be allowed to harbor a little bit of doubt, because when Jay's gone, So that allows Chairman Baucus to lose no more. He cannot lose another vote. And Jay Rockefeller is serious. He voted against the chairman's bill moving through the committee in 1994, and we got it through. I was working the committee at the time. We picked up 3 Republicans along the way, because the process that you're going to see is Republicans making inroads into this bill, as they did in 1994, through the amendment process in the committee. That's what Baucus means about maybe it's not over yet on getting Olympia Snowe.
Is it better for the cause of actual health care reform for the bill to die in committee or for it to be taken to the floor?
The best thing is to get something out, because if it dies, panic will go through the Senate and panic will go through the House, because it'll show that this committee couldn't do it. So you need to get, in order to get forward from here, you need to get something, anything out of that committee. The closest Jay Rockefeller can get it to the way he wants it is the way he's going to try to do it through his First Amendment is going to be put the public option in. It will lose. There's no question that it will lose in that committee based on where the votes are right now. And so the dilemma for him is, do I vote to move this procedure forward? Last time around he didn't, but that's the only vote Baucus can afford to lose.
Michelle Obama to stump for health care reform. We know that it's supposed to be more about health care and less about reform, and it's this soft and all the rest of this political speak. We also know what happened the last time a first lady got involved in health care reform. Is this a good idea, even in its sort of remote form?
Well, you've got to do the delicate version. It's very tricky. What you can't have is Michelle Obama out there answering whether she's in favor of Charlie Rangel's 3 new top tax brackets, or whether she's in favor of Max Baucus's 35% tax on health care plans that are worth more than $8,000, which the unions oppose, because an $8,000 plan is not a lavish plan, as we know. And so there are too many particulars now that are out there in the bills that you don't want her to have to address. Now, Hillary Clinton did address those things because she was an expert on the legislation. She had written her version of it. Michelle Obama doing the brush your teeth version of this is the only way to go. And risky. There's no. Her numbers will go down from doing even that. She'll go from a 70% approval down to a 60%, but she's got some approval to spend here.
Speaking of spending your approval possibly in the wrong place, what is this from Senator Grassley saying that he resents the White House for calling him out, and his word was associating him with extreme claims about the end-of-life situation? I'm missing, even exposed to as much politics as I've been exposed to, this makes no sense whatsoever.
Well, you haven't been exposed to Chuck.
I guess.
Look, Chuck Grassley is a guy he's been in the Senate since 1980. He was in the House for three terms before that. So he's been 30 years in the Congress in complete obscurity. Nobody knew who he was a year ago, and for pretty good reason. He knows how to do Iowa politics. He has no idea how to be in the eye of a national political storm. And so the truth of this is, knowing Chuck Grassley as I do, he really doesn't know why the president is mad at him. He really does. What was it that I said that was so bad? He would pass a lie detector test saying, I don't know why the president's mad at me for saying that thing about death penalty. So he really would.
His TV series right now would be Lost.
Well, not used to the high stakes, high pressure, every single word counts politics. He's never been in that before.
Okay, we'll get him a primer on the 21st century. Lawrence O'Donnell of MSNBC and the Huffington Post, always a pleasure. Thanks for coming in.